not commit. So it cost him a lot politically. The fear is that he will not be willing to do anything. His chief legal officer says he has a stack of clemency requests higher than this table. So we were asking these people, these senators and members of Congress, to contact him and please call his attention to the case, raise his appeal to the top of the pile. And I believe they will do that, and we will continue to stay on the case. But due to Laura's generosity, I was not on her show today, and due to your generosity, I was not here on time. I took the train back to Baltimore, grabbed my wife in the car, and we took off through the rain, and we just got here. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for your work. Does Joe have hope?
Joe always has hope. Joe is a remarkable human being, one who has developed from this self-hating, addicted wretch into an extraordinarily decent, thoughtful, intelligent human being who has filed lawsuits on behalf of any number of other inmates, who started when he was first commuted a program in a minimum security prison, a medium security prison in Virginia, a program about nonviolence based on the teachings of King and Mahatma Gandhi and others. And he did so well that the new regime that came in under Governor Allen and a man they brought to head their Department of Corrections named Ron Angelone, shut down his program, saying they didn't want programs run by prisoners to be doing more work for them for the benefit of the prisoner than were programs done by the state. And Angelone shipped Joe out of state in the middle of the night on the governor's plane, shipped him to a prison in Utah, where he got in trouble because he filed suit against the Utah authorities for using what they call the devil's chair, a restraint device that keeps you literally locked into a terrifically uncomfortable position, and you're supposed to use it for no more than X hours, 6 hours at a time. They used it for 48 hours on a man and killed him. So he filed suit against them, brought the Justice Department into it, so they got rid of him, moved him to Joliet Prison in Illinois, where I saw him then. And the warden there thought he was quite an extraordinary guy and liked him a lot, but Joe said, I want to go back to Virginia, and because that's where my case will be realized. And so he went on a hunger strike, and the warden there said, okay, back he goes. Ron Angelone didn't want him there, so he put him in Red Onion, which is their supermax, where Joe stayed for about 10 years. And from there he went to where he is now in Wallens Ridge State Prison. And all of that time, he's been working on behalf of other prisoners. He's just an amazing human being. Sounds like he has a whole lot more than hope. Yes.
Your memoir talks about a journey to actor and activist. Yes. In retrospect, which do you think came first?
Oh, I was an activist long before I was an actor. I was frightened of being an actor, and I was an activist because of what I saw. You know, I saw in the Marine Corps, I joined the Marines out of high school and served in Okinawa and Japan. And
remind people who haven't read the book yet why you joined the Marines.
Oh, yeah. I was raised in a, some would call traditional, working-class Irish Catholic family, wherein my father was the dominant figure, a hard-drinking, two-fisted, tough Irishman who came from a tradition wherein you don't talk, you don't speak about your emotions, you're not particularly supportive, there is no father-son dialogue, you rule with your fists. So I was a terrified kid, and I was trying to always to please my father, to try and get his approval. And he had the audacity to die when I was a teenager, so that never happened. And I was still struggling to, as is, I think psychologically always the case, I was still struggling to get my father's approval long after his death. Graduated from high school, and college wasn't on the agenda, so the Marine Corps builds men, I was told, so I decided they'd build me one, and joined. In Japan, a fellow Marine and I palled around, went out on liberty together and came back. And when we came back, there was tension in the barracks, and it took me a while to figure out why, and it was because he was black and I was white. And in 1958, that was not what was supposed to happen, even though Harry Truman had integrated the services some years before. And that really was a shock to me. I was a pretty naive kid, being so worried about my own situation that I had some awareness of bias, but I wasn't. I was stunned by this. And I got out of the Marines, and then one of the jobs I got first was to drive a car across the country to deliver it to somebody in North Carolina. And I drove through Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, and I saw artifacts of what I thought were ancient history: white-only and black-only drinking fountains and white-only and black-only restrooms, and realized that my friend and I, who had both put on the Marine Corps uniform to defend our country — thank heaven we weren't in a war, so we didn't have to fight — couldn't have taken that trip together, couldn't have been together on liberty as we had been in the Marines, couldn't have eaten in the same place, couldn't have stayed in the same hotel or motel. And I was really offended by that, deeply offended by that, and got involved in the civil rights movement, and that led to involvement in the anti-war movement and involvement in the black revolution and the brown revolution and the women's revolution and the gay rights movement and any number of other things.
And somewhere along the line you took time to be in a long-running, very successful TV series.
Yeah, well, somewhere along the line I got lucky enough to begin to pursue my hidden dream, this dream that I was afraid to give voice to because my father would have excoriated me for it. And I tried moving myself forward in an acting career, and had some quite extraordinary experiences personally. Marriage fell apart, and I was saved, literally, by some friends who directed me to a halfway house organization, which was run by former addicts, people with drug problems and alcohol problems and sexual problems, and people out of prisons and people out of mental institutions, who came to the understanding that they had to learn to tell the truth and face the truth about themselves or die. And that process, they took me in as a straight person who was just frustrated and furious and angry and not understanding about why his marriage fell apart, and took me past that into examining my own life and my own person and my own values and the fears that ran me. And they taught me something that I will never forget and has guided me for the rest of my days, and that is that all human beings want the same thing. All of us want to be loved, to be respected, and to have attention paid. And once I discovered not only that that's what I wanted, but that I deserved that as a human being, and that all other human beings want that and deserve that, it became my mantra. It became an understanding for me that has propelled me through all of these movements I described. And once my career began to blossom, and I did a show called MASH, and got some attention for the fact that I was willing to speak out on issues, it opened the door to me being involved with the refugee movement internationally. I was in Cambodia after the Pol Pot massacres. I was in Central America during the terrible civil war in El Salvador, or the Contra War in Nicaragua. I've been in Rwanda and Bosnia with the United Nations, and in many places that need our attention. And mostly I've been here in the United States, in our prisons and on our death rows, and trying to stop this horror.
Did you get it yet? Why you need to buy the book? It's all in there, particularly here, the story of that Mike just told. I have to say, listening to you, I was thinking about my father and how MASH, you were actually present for some of the most fun ritual moments I had with my father, who died when I was 13. But we had the habit I think it was Monday night growing up in London, to watch MASH. 9:15 it came on, and on a Monday, I think it was, I was allowed to stay up till 9:45 or whatever it was to watch MASH, and he loved it and I loved it, and thank you.
How great. Well, you are more than welcome. You know, I hear that. It's so wonderful. Here we are 30 years after the show was, 27 years after the show went off the air. And people are still they come up to me today and say, you know, I used to watch the show with my father or my grandfather or my grandparents, and now I watch it with my children.
Do you think it speaks today